Welcome back to Knifeism. This is Drew,
That's Ryan.
and we just finished talking about Endgame. Next up, we want to talk about some TV.
Yeah, we're gonna scale it back and maybe try to stay focused a little bit.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
hopefully. Luckily, this one is it will probably force us to focus, and that's because we're not talking about the Battle of Winterfell. did you watch the newest Game of
Yes.
Thrones? Oh God, I feel like we have to talk about that too at some point.
Yeah, we could.
And
Let's
all right,
save it
no
for another episode,
spoilers.
'cause we could
Yeah.
easily do it.
But we're talking about
True Detective season 3.
yes. I watched True Detective season 3 as it aired. Drew, you just binged it, right?
Yeah, I binged it a couple weeks ago. Gladly, I had the most roundabout way of watching this anthology series. I went 2, 1, 3.
So did I. I watched 2. I heard such good stuff about season 1. I had never watched season 1 because I didn't have HBO. I watched season 2 when it was out new because
Yeah, I was watching 2 while it was airing, and then
Right.
I went back and binged, and then I let 3 build up because I knew I could just, with how short the season is, they really allow you to binge if you like the season, but they really allow you to binge because of how tight they are usually.
I really like Mahershala Ali, and I was excited for the direction that it looked like it was going, so I had to watch it every week as it came out.
Now I'm gonna try a really weird analogy here. Season 3 is the Riddick in the Chronicles of Riddick trilogy that is these movies, because you have Pitch Black, which is season 1, surprise out of nowhere, great hit, and then things get a little too complicated. They get Chronicles of Riddick in season 2, and then maybe not as many people are still on board for season 3, but then Riddick comes out, and it's not a bad movie because it gets back to the roots of like the first movie, and that's what season 3 is to me. It's kind of we tried to go like big urban corporate espionage and more characters, and let's just pare it back a bit, have a little bit more focused narrative, and focus on fewer characters. I'd say, even though the Roland character is a really good supporting character, he's a true supporting character, unlike how in season 1 you've got 2 mains.
Yeah.
And I feel like it really helps this season.
I really like that analogy. I had been thinking Indiana Jones. You've got your biblical search for treasure.
Yeah.
Then you try something totally different, and then you realize what worked,
worked
what
first
didn't,
time.
and
Yeah.
you go back to that.
Yeah.
But you still add enough elements to it to make it its own thing.
Mhm. Yeah, it feels pared down compared to season 2, because I think they found that season 2 is a bit more than they could chew.
I remember liking season 2.
I like season 2, but when you
but I can't think of any specific scenes or details.
detail wise, it's hard because things swerve so much in that season.
It's the quantum of solace
Yeah,
of.
and they had a writing team, which makes it even worse.
For the record, I didn't hate Quantum of Solace.
No,
It was fine. It just wasn't Skyfall or
it wasn't up to par of those new Bond films.
or
But
Casino Royale. We're gonna spend the next 25 minutes just making analogies to, to other series here. That's my fault. I'm sorry.
season three hinges on Mahershala Ali because he's very good and he has to carry this. If you haven't looked into anything in terms of season 3, we're gonna spoil some stuff, but just like the previous seasons, there is a cold case that you see different time periods of, and the wrench in these works are that Mahershala Ali's character was the primary detective and his partner on the case. The problem is he has Alzheimer's, so
Yeah.
his details are starting to get fuzzier. But to him, it's almost therapeutic to remember the case because he worked on it twice in 1980 and 1990. So him remembering it kind of makes him realize, like, oh, I can still
He even
recall things.
He even says that. I mean, this guy was. Oh, was he a tunnel rat in Nam, or what was he in Nam?
He was a long-range reconnaissance patrol.
That's right. I forgot what it was. I knew it was something in Vietnam. And he even says that something that should have been the defining moment of his life was just a precursor, and that what defined his life ended up being this one singular case. One little nitpick is that episode 1, they start to really hint at the unreliable narrator.
But they never really
And
carried
they
through
never
with it.
carried
No.
through. No. And
I think I'm okay with it because it would. I think it would have felt swervy, for the sake of swervy.
I think if you just sprinkled it in a little and didn't rely on it as a crutch, it would have made the show a little bit better. But that's a minor quibble for what
they probably would have extended what they wanted because these are concise. What are the 8 episodes a season?
If that.
Yeah, it's they're concise. So maybe they didn't want to like. Maybe they had that, but they were like, it's probably gonna add another episode or 2 of trying to clear that aspect of it up. But the other thing that just came to mind is this feels like this is the season that they could probably cut for cable and syndicate it because it's the cleanest of the seasons.
There's a lot of language that would have to be.
Yes, but there's there's very little sexual content in the season.
Yeah, there's a lot of implied though. There's some really dark things. Like there's a hole in a wall where it's implying that someone was getting watched even as a little kid.
True.
It turns out to not be that.
No, but I mean, there's implication. But that was one of the things that I thought of at the end was I'm like, it's a really clean season for an HBO series. And I'm like, are they trying to maybe put this on like some kind of syndication in the future? But again, maybe that's because they wanted to get back to basics. They didn't want to kind of have the HBO sex and violence formula.
I'm also kind of glad that they swerved the way that they did because there have been far too many movies and TV shows recently. Did you see You Were Never Really Here?
No.
That was the Joaquin Phoenix one?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah. That one gets really, really dark and goes into like sexual abuse and trafficking and all that stuff. And that is something that we're seeing just more and more of.
And you thought maybe it was like a palate cleanser, I guess?
And it was nice. At first, I was afraid of this season, thinking, oh no, this is just going to be another, child sex trafficking ring sort of thing. And it was actually kind of refreshing that it wasn't. Because I've seen too much of that in recent cinema.
It's also the only positive season. Like, decidedly positive.
I'll call it neutral over positive.
Yeah, well, by their standards, I'd say it's a positive season.
I don't know. At the end of season 1, really, that's my biggest issue with season 1 is the very end.
Yes.
When McConaughey's character, we talked about this.
Where he just turns...
Yeah, instead of being consumed by the cosmic horror that is hinted at over the course of the whole season, at the very end he just decides, oh, okay, well, life's actually pretty swell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never really got.
Yeah, it felt like you were betrayed in that season.
This one, holy shit! Someone is outside with the loudest car radio. Good quality to whoever that is. I'm gonna edit this out. Okay. I'm sure that's getting picked up by the mic right now. Wow. Anyway, this season, it ends on a note of some mysteries will never get solved. He gets painfully close to solving it. There's the implication that his son might even take it up.
It's very Twilight Zone-y.
Yeah.
Or no, was that an Outer Limits episode?
It could have been either. I don't really
it's
remember.
It's very all the books in the world and no glasses.
Yes, that was Twilight Zone.
Yeah,
my favorite episode of the Twilight Zone.
But there's also the cool like True Detective like aspect of it that you notice his son, who's also a detective, keeps the note that was in his pocket at the end of the season.
Right, and the implication,
which is kind of cool in that like you get this idea that like there are people who always want to try to solve the unsolvable.
And it also hints at a future almost like Sins of the Father sort of thing, and that this entire case, which has ruined a whole generation of people.
Which I think I told you in a text that it feels like more so than the perpetrator of the crime and the case itself is an antagonist in this. Because anytime they get close to actually finding something out about it, the local police just wants to close it again so that they can claim a victory because, there's a attorney general election coming up, or the sheriff's department needs a win now, or something like that. Like something always swerves them right when they're getting it back into the meat of it that the case feels like the antagonist in this season.
And that's I remember looking at that text and thinking I was ashamed of myself for not thinking of it in those terms. And it's
in this season, it's the case. It's the need to try to solve it. That's what brings them to their lowest too.
Yeah, and it really they make some they make decisions, especially Steven Dorff, makes decisions that as a viewer you want to say, no, do the right thing, back Mahershala Ali. But then the logical part of you is watching it saying, I would do exactly what he did because I've got a career to think about. And it's nice to see Steven Dorff have that arc over the course of the show, whereas Mahershala Ali doesn't really change all that much.
No, he's... And that's established early on in his character with his Vietnam background, and even right before they take the case, that he's just a no-nonsense, I'm driven by the task.
Yeah. Steven Dorff, out of nowhere.
Well, which is what this series kind of did for McConaughey, and in season 2 it tried to do for its focal actors, but no, like this was a true like, hey, remember that guy in Blade? Hey, he's actually a great actor. Maybe it's material. Maybe you give him something good and he's good.
I looked up his IMDb though, and I didn't see really anything that he was in
other
between
than
then and now.
This Cecil B. Demented.
I have no idea what that is.
It's like a weird like old movie.
His acting, like you watch Mahershala Ali for the same reason that you watch somebody like
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Thank you.
Somebody who can
words right out of my mouth.
Really,
who can really act right. But then you watch Steven Dorff for someone who can act and really spice things up. It wasn't all just one-liners though.
No. And I think it was helped by the fact that there's so much distance between the time periods in this. In season 1, it's like a 10-year skip. It's like 94 to 2004 or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in this one, you're going from 80 to 2015. So he's had it, like, he's off screen had the most of his character development, and you still feel it because the narrative is there from when they're working on it in 80 to where he's at his peak in 90, and then where he's just
an alcoholic with his dogs.
In 15.
Overall, I'm not gonna say it's better than season 1.
Season 1 is just so unique. But season 3, I'm trying to get my parents, I got them into Game of Thrones. They've watched it maybe 15 times. They've watched it more times than I watched it. I watched Game of Thrones only once through. My parents have watched it like 3 times through. So I'm like, just watch True Detective. Oh, we tried to watch maybe like the first episode of the first season. I'm like, start with season 3. It's an anthology. It's far more directed. Not in terms of like the direction, but like it's more direct than any of the other seasons. So you'll get like the experience of what people like the series for from this season. I would say it's a really good. If you have somebody who's kind of iffy about it, like I heard good things, but I don't know. It's an anthology. You could watch any of the seasons
in any
order.
This is
the best one I would say to start out with because it's the simplest, but not simple. If that makes any sense.
It doesn't have season 1. In rewatching it, there are parts that can be very jarring.
Yes,
like way more than this. Like this deals with the darker elements by hinting at things, whereas season 1 is a little bit more overt.
Yes. It's more oppressive in season 1, whereas here it's just the unknowable is more important in the season because they want you as the viewer to kind of feel like you don't have enough of a grasp. You don't get the other side that you might have gotten in other seasons. Definitely in season 2. I think that's where season 2 is hurt. Is that you kind of see what the police don't see. So you're a little bit hurt by knowing more than they should know. In this season, you only know what the detectives know.
Yeah, I only watched season 2 the one time, so I don't really remember. But now that you say that makes perfect sense. Well, if season 1 is cosmic, Lovecraftian horror, and season 2 is film noir, what do we classify season 3 as?
Is it pulp? Hard-boiled pulp, maybe?
I don't know. I've been trying to think of an answer.
I mean, when you boil down the cast, they are just they are occupations basically.
Yeah.
But there's more depth there. But I mean, it's your main character is just driven to solve a case. It feels like it's just more like traditional crime story or something.
And yet it still maintains some of the same tonal elements. There is a little bit of a callback to season 1 just to show that this is a shared universe.
Shared universe. It's never going to cross
over.
But
and that's fine. But I'm okay with that because it also establishes rules for anything they do in the future. In that this is you can look at either season and you're going to expect the same level of realism, same level of
Yes, yeah.
everything. Whereas some crime things go a little bit
Off the rails.
Yeah. Now we have a baseline. We know that this being a shared universe, we've got a larger sample size
Yeah.
of what we can expect
You kind of
moving forward.
understand, for lack of a better term, the physics of the True Detective universe,
Yes.
of how realistic it's going to be. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to really spoil too much.
No, I think we've talked enough about like what is good about it without ruining it.
I did spoil the ending. Kind of. We talked about that.
No,
That
we didn't talk about because the ending is a swerve in a way because now this is from watching the other seasons. You think it's going to be far more sinister, but the ending isn't. But I mean, it's one of those. I'd like to talk to somebody who has only seen this, and then.
But the
What did you
ending is-
expect it was? Because it is kind of hinted at, but what like having watched it, I think we're gonna expect the worst.
Oh,
But somebody who hasn't watched the season before this might think something, and you're like, oh well, then watch the other seasons.
I expected something completely different, even
Yeah.
going into the last couple of episodes. I mean, it is kind of fucked up. It's not
definitely.
Would you consider it realistic though? I think it does
within the bounds of this universe. Yes,
because it does.
There's a lot of
stretch.
vaguely supernatural, but nothing overly supernatural in season 1.
Whereas this one, I mean, this one just
It's outlandish, but not unreal. I mean, crazy things like this have happened.
Okay, fair.
Without spoiling, but crazy things like this have happened in the real world.
But towards the end, the kids on the bikes, echoing back to the kids on the bikes.
Yeah, I think that's choice,
just
yes.
it is. But I really like how what this is driving home is how cyclical these things are,
Yes.
and how there's
Time is a flat circle.
Yeah, and that's it. This is the whole time is a flat circle thing has been done so many times before. Place Beyond the Pines, which I thought falters in the second half a lot, was that same sort of idea. So if you like that general idea of things being generational and things that you can never really escape from, I think this is one of the better portrayals of that on film.
Just in closing, if you haven't watched any season, definitely start here. If you have watched and stuck with it through season 2, like I know a lot of people think it's the worst thing ever. It's not. It's what got me into the series. But if in retrospect you didn't like season 2 as much, season 3 is much more a return to form for you. So I would say if you were on the fence and you want to watch it, definitely give it a try.
Yeah, I'm gonna say same thing. I would probably go 3, 1, 2.
Yeah. 2 is a lot to chew.
2, it is, but I'm gonna say that if you really want to watch season 2, right now, if you go on Netflix, there's some classic stuff on there, like The Third Man, some old school film noir. Watch something like The Third Man first, and then go
See
and
what
watch.
they're trying to go for.
Right, you definitely need a palate cleanser before you jump into that one because it's totally very different from seasons 1 and 3. But yeah, I would give this a solid 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, it's
in terms of TV.
Definitely a recommendation.
And I think we've said all that we can without really specifying spoilers. So thanks again for watching, and maybe we'll I don't know, maybe we'll power through a few minutes on the Battle of Winterfell, which I'm thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.